Your brain just decided what you're going to do tomorrow. And you weren't even part of the conversation. There's this guy who wakes up every morning and checks his phone before his eyes are fully open. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't decide to do it. His hand just reaches over, finds the screen. Suddenly he's scrolling. 20 minutes gone. He tells himself he'll stop doing this. Every night before bed, he means it. And every morning it happens anyway. He feels like he's watching himself from outside his own body, like someone else is moving his hand. That feeling, that split between what you want to do and what you actually do, that's not weakness. That's not you failing at self-control. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. See, your brain is expensive. Not in money, obviously, but in energy. It burns through about 20% of all the calories you eat, even though it's only 2% of your body weight. That's like running a laptop that uses more power than your entire house. So your brain is obsessed with efficiency. It's constantly looking for ways to save energy, to not have to think so hard about every single thing you do. And this is where habits come in. A habit is basically your brain's way of putting something on autopilot. Imagine you had to consciously think about every step you take when you walk. Left foot, shift weight, right foot, balance, don't fall over. You'd be exhausted just going to the kitchen, but you don't think about walking. Your brain figured out the pattern years ago and filed it away under solved problems. Don't waste energy here. That's what happens with everything you do repeatedly. Your brain notices the pattern. It sees that in this situation, you always do this thing, and then you feel okay, or you get something you want, or a problem goes away. And your brain loves that. Predictable cause and effect. So it's building a little pathway, like wearing down a trail through the woods by walking the same route every day. Here's the thing people get wrong though. They think habits are about what you're doing. Check phone, drink coffee, bite nails, go for a run, whatever. But that's not really what a habit is. A habit is about what comes before. It's about the trigger. Your brain is always scanning for cues, little signals in your environment, or your body, or your emotions that say, I know this one, I've solved this before. And the moment it recognizes that cue, it just launches the behavior. You don't decide. The decision was already made the last 50 times this exact situation happened. That guy, he's not really addicted to scrolling. His brain has just learned that waking up feels uncomfortable. There's this brief moment of blankness, of having to orient yourself to the day, and that feels vulnerable. But phone scrolling feels safe. It's familiar. It fills that gap. So now, the cue isn't even about the phone. The cue is that feeling of waking up. And the second his brain detects it, the habit fires. This is why trying harder doesn't work. You can't out-discipline an automatic process. It's like trying to hold your breath forever. You can try, you can really commit, but eventually your brainstem is going to override you and make you breathe. Habits work on that same involuntary level. They're not happening in the part of your brain that makes conscious choices. They're happening deeper, in the part that just executes patterns. And your brain really trusts these patterns, because from an evolutionary perspective, kept you alive. If you ate a red berry once and got sick, your brain didn't want you sitting there the next time debating whether maybe this red berry is different. It just made you feel disgusted at the sight of red berries. Instant. Automatic. No thought required. That's a survival shortcut. Your habits are the same system. They're your brain's way of saying, we've been here before, we know. Let me handle this. Let me handle this. And most of the time, that's actually helpful. You don't want to have to decide how to brush your teeth every morning. You don't want to relearn how to drive every time you get in the car. But here's where it gets messy. Your brain can't tell the difference between a helpful pattern and a destructive one. Just sees. cue, behavior, result. If the result makes you feel even slightly better in the moment, even if it's terrible for you long term, your brain marks that as success. It logs that pattern. And next time the cue shows up, it's going to suggest that same behavior again. This is why you can know something is bad for you and still do it. Because knowing doesn't change the pattern. The pattern exists in a different part of your brain than your knowledge does. It's like your conscious mind is the rider on a horse, and your habit brain is the horse. The rider can have all kinds of ideas about where to go, but if the horse has walked the same path home for 5 years, it's going to take that path. The rider can pull on the reins, but the horse is bigger and stronger, and it just knows where it's going. And this is actually why your habits feel like they control your life. Because in a very real sense, they do. Research suggests that something like 40 to 50% of what you do every day isn't really decided by you in the moment. It's just patterns playing out. You're living almost half your life on autopilot. Think about that for a second. Half of your day is just yesterday repeating itself. But here's the part that makes this complicated and also kind of hopeful. The pattern never really goes away. That trail through the woods doesn't disappear just because you stop walking it. Your brain keeps it filed away just in case. This is why you can quit something for months and then suddenly, one stressful day, you're right back to it. The pattern was still there. Dormant, but there. People find this discouraging. They think it means they're broken or that change is impossible. But actually, it just means you have to work with how your brain works, not against it. You can't erase the pattern, but you can build a new trail right next to it. And if you walk that new trail enough times, your brain will start defaulting to that one instead. The problem is, building a new trail is slow. It's effortful. It requires you to consciously intervene every single time the old cue shows up. And that's exhausting. This is why most people fail at changing habits. Not because they're weak, but because they're trying to use their tiny rider brain to fight their massive horse brain, and it's just not a fair fight. What actually works is understanding the cue. Because if you can catch the moment right before the habit fires, you have this tiny window where you can choose differently. Not easily, not automatically, but you can. And if you do it enough times, you start building that new pathway. But you have to know what you're looking for. Most people think the cue is obvious. I eat junk food when I'm hungry. But usually the real cue is something else. Maybe it's not hunger, maybe it's boredom, or loneliness, or that specific time of day when you used to take a break at your old job, and your brain still thinks break means snack even though you work from home now. Your brain is very specific about these cues, and it's usually not what you think it is at first. You have to actually pay attention. Notice what was happening right before you did the thing. Not just big obvious stuff, the tiny details. What time was it? What were you feeling? Who were you with or not with? What just happened 5 minutes ago? Because once you see the real cue, you can start messing with it. You can change your environment so the cue doesn't show up. You can plan a different response for when it does. And this is hard at first. It really is, because you're overriding something that feels automatic. But if you can interrupt the pattern enough times, your brain starts to learn that the old pathway isn't as reliable as it used to be. And the new one starts to feel more normal. There's something else too. Most habits are trying to solve a problem. They're not random. That guy checking his phone first thing in the morning, his habit is solving the problem of that uncomfortable waking up feeling. So if you want to change the habit, you kind of have to solve the problem differently. You have to give your brain another way to handle that discomfort. Otherwise, you're just taking away the solution without offering anything else. And your brain will eventually go back to what it knows works. This is why just stop doesn't work. You can white-knuckle it for a while, but you're not actually solving anything. You're just suppressing the behavior and hoping the need for it goes away. But the need doesn't go away. The cue keeps showing up, and eventually you'll be tired or stressed or distracted, and the old pattern will fire before you can stop it. And then you feel like you failed. But you didn't fail. Your brain just did what brains do. It ran a pattern that's been carved deep into your wiring. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human, and you have a brain that learns, and sometimes it learns things you wish it hadn't. The weird part about all this is that you are your brain. It's not like there's a you, separate from your brain, making different choices. Your brain is generating the feeling of you. Somehow, it also feels like your brain is doing things without your permission. And that's because different parts of your brain are doing different things, and they don't always agree. The part that makes conscious plans isn't the same part that runs automatic behaviors. So you end up in this civil war with yourself, where part of you wants one thing and part of you just keeps doing another thing. And the part that runs habits is older evolutionarily. It's been around longer. It's more practiced. It doesn't need much energy to operate because it's just running scripts. Meanwhile, the part of you that makes intentional decisions is newer, and it's expensive to run, and it gets tired. This is why your willpower feels like it runs out. Because it kind of does. That deliberate, conscious choice-make part of your brain can only do so much before it needs a break. So habits win by attrition. They just outlast your willpower. Single. This is why your life can feel like it's not really yours. Because you keep making plans and setting intentions and promising yourself that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow arrives, fire, and the habits run, and you end up right back where you were. Not because you don't care. Not because you're lazy, but because you're trying to fight a system that doesn't work the way you think it works. And maybe the real problem isn't the habits themselves. Maybe it's that nobody explained how this actually works. You've been trying to change your life by changing your mind, but your habits aren't in your mind. They're deeper. They're in the machinery. And you can't think your way out of something that's not happening at the level of thought. Once you get that, once you really understand that your brain is just running patterns it learned, the whole thing feels less personal. It's not about you being flawed. It's just about patterns. And patterns can be changed, but not by force. Only by repetition. Only by patiently walking a new trail until it becomes the path of least resistance. That's the thing your brain really wants anyway. Not the old habit specifically, just the easiest path. And right now, the old habit is easier because it's familiar. But if you can make a new behavior easier, or make the old behavior harder, your brain will eventually switch. Because your brain doesn't care what it's doing. It just wants to conserve energy and solve problems and keep you alive. So maybe the question isn't in how to break your habits. Maybe it's how to work with the part of you that's building them in the first place.